guys, and welcome to another episode with Autism Elements. My name is Natalia, and today I want to talk to you guys about a simple data tracking sheet that is going to help simplify the way you track data. So I support many schools in my district, and when I continuously have conversations on how to track data, the one common factor is that most teachers feel like data is incredibly overwhelming and that they don't know how to tackle it. I always say that they go into the data vortex. They feel like it's overwhelming, it's time consuming, that it has to be super elaborate, and that they just don't have time for it, and they end up kind of time flies by and they don't track their data. Now, the problem with that is that in this world and now and age, we know that our students with legal documents, which are also known as IEPs or individual educational plans, we must have evidence that shows all the hard work you guys are doing in the classroom. So I want to spend some time today to give you a tool that is going to be super beneficial, simple, and I'm going to give you some examples on how to actually use it. So not just talk about it, but actually how to use it. So here is the simple data tracking sheet, and let me show it to you guys. So if you notice, it's super simple. It's just a chart. It has up to 10 objects, and it has the student's name, the skill, and again, super simple. But you may be thinking, I still don't quite get how to use this. So today I'm going to show you two different things. What I tell everybody is that you can use this with anything. So we're going to use two examples. The first one is going to be a file folder, and it could be absolutely any file folder, but you're going to realize that it doesn't have to be an actual tangible object. It could be maybe a simple activity such as a put-in task. And I'll give you guys a few examples, okay? So how do you actually implement this? So one of the things I tell my teachers is data is useful because without data, you just have an opinion. But if you can track things and progress monitor, is going to help you as the special education teacher or a therapist, if you're a therapist and you're watching this, because it's going to help you see how the student is progressing or regressing in this case. You're gonna be able to make executive decisions based on data-driven things, right? If you can see how the student's progressing or regressing, you're going to realize, hey, maybe I need to change my strategies, my accommodations, my prompting levels, or my behavioral cues, maybe whatever it may be, but you're going to be able to see that as you track it. So here's my first example. Let me show you how we are going to start by doing this. So I'm going to start with actually the put-in task. Keep in mind that this type of data tracking sheet you can utilize with any grade level, whether you are working in pre-K or preschool, all the way to high school and transition, and honestly, and beyond. What I want you guys to be clear and specific about is, for example, the skill is what we are going to track. Now, if you're tracking the skill of put-in task, you can just put like I did, which was put-in task, place 10 or 5 objects in a given container, meaning that if you keep switching around the container, maybe the tangible objects, okay, you're still tracking the same skill, but you're switching it up so your student or individual does not get bored, and boredom equals behavior. So you want to make sure that you have a variety of things, but still the skill is the same. That's if you're going to go with the route of tracking a skill, okay? Now, there's different things. The way that this worksheet works is I'm going to keep it very simple. We're going to use a plus and a minus. A plus is that means that it was successful. A minus that it was not. One of the things that I tell my teacher, I always highly recommend to establish a baseline data. My baseline data was, how does the student perform this particular skill or activity completely independent? Meaning that you can start by saying it has no reinforcers, no behavioral cues, no prompting, the student does it on their own. And that's going to be my baseline data. I'm going to track that baseline data for at least 5 trials, just so I can really grab, does it change by day? Does it really impact where the child having just a bad day? And then I'm going to start tracking it, implementing some of those other things. Sometimes our students may need to have accommodations given, and I would note that. Sometimes our students need certain prompting levels. I would note that as well. Sometimes our students need reinforcers along the way. I would note it. Now, if you notice there's not much space here, I told my teachers, don't complicate it. All you could do is write in the back of it, write some notes that go along with this specific tracking sheet. Okay, so that is one way to just make sure that whoever is reading this data or looking at this particular progress monitoring tool, they are really able to understand and capture what was happening when you were using these skill tracking or when you were addressing that activity. Okay, so how it works, I told you guys I just use plus and minus. The one disclaimer that I am going to recommend to you guys is the following. When you are tracking, try to always pick an even number. My suggestion to simplify it is either do 5 or 10. 5 trials, 5 opportunities, 10 opportunities, 10 trials, 10 problems, because it's just so much easier to track. Think about it. If you're using the 5, every one of these will be worth 20%. Okay, so if the child does 2 correctly, then that means that's 40% correct. Okay, and if you're using 10, every one of those will be worth 10%, meaning that if the child gets 7 correct, that's 70%. To me, it's so easy to just track that, right? Rather than if you had 6, then you really have to calculate if the child got 5 out of 6, what's my percentage? So I don't like complications. One of the things I learned as a special education teacher is the simpler the things are, the easier it is, and the more you can achieve it and actually put it in place. So if a child, and I'm just gonna go simple, so I'm tracking this particular data, this skill, which is the put in task right here, right? The student had to put in these little pom-poms, or it could be pom-poms that have these little foam squares, whatever it may be, into a container, and it could be any container. They were only able to put in 5, so, you know, every time I was working with the child, watching them, I tracked it, they only put 5, minus, 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 minus. My total here would be 50%. Super simple. I mean, think about it. I know anybody could do this, and I know you could do this, and data tracking does not have to be overwhelming, right? So here's a couple things. So let's say that after the 5th one, my student got super overwhelmed and started, I don't know, having a meltdown. Okay, so I might know after the 5th, I said started a tantrum, had difficulty, was able to attend. I could write that notes right under if you want. You could skip a line. It's okay. All right. The whole point is you want to start documenting what was happening, or why did the child only stop at 5? If you were able to find that like that observation, if you were able to identify what made the struggle to continue. And if you keep doing this, okay, one of the things you're going to realize, like let's say the student was at 50, then you did it another day, and you want to be consistent on your days, guys. Then you did 60, 70, 80 again, 70. But let's say my child then started going to 80, 100, 100. Okay, I want to give you an idea real quick. Look at my data. Let's say that this was all filled out. I've been doing this for a couple of times. The student is doing well with this activity. What is my data showing you? Now they're starting to master it. So that's how progress monitoring becomes so important. Because if I see that this child is starting to get this skill, then I know one of two things. Either the student has mastered the skill, if they were doing it independently, or they have mastered the format with the level and promptings, meaning that I'm going to challenge that student to the next level. And that's why I say it is so important to track your data and progress monitoring, because it's going to help you make data-driven decisions, right? It's going to help you realize if maybe you need to put more reinforcers in, more prompting in, or maybe they're ready to start doing it a little bit more independent and just being reinforced at the end. This is going to be great for you to utilize. Okay, so this one, again, if you're doing hands-on objects and they are just observable behaviors, because you will not have an actual tangible work product or work sample. But if you do have a work sample, okay, and I'm just going to use like file folders. Now, granted, here you couldn't really track the objects here. You're not going to make a copy of this. But if you are going to be using a file folder, you're going to go ahead and put the name of the actual folder activity that you're tracking. But I am asking you to take the next level, because again, whoever's going to be reading this, if they don't know what you were doing, you want to provide an example. I will go to the next step and just make a photocopy of this, right? And this, super simple, and staple it together. So whenever you're going back in time and figuring out, well, what exactly did that activity look like, now you have your data and your proof. So if you notice, again, this can be used with anything. And if you don't want to use file folders, you can even use it with worksheets if you want to be able to track and progress monitoring it because they don't have like an actual example, or you want to have it all together so you can really identify, is the student progressing or are they regressing, or can I go to the next level? Here's a simple way to do it. Now, one of the things I told my teacher is you basically could train anybody to use this, but if it is IEP goals, as the actual teacher from the classroom, I really recommend that you're the one tracking those particular goals. But any other skills and activity, if you have a highly qualified paraprofessional or a classroom assistant, or if you can train them to do it exactly how you expect it to, you definitely could give this, and I feel like anybody could really use this tracking sheet. So what I tell my teachers is, data doesn't have to be elaborate. Now I'm going to bring this one back real quick. If you want to go to the elaborate way, and I had all of these, I could easily graph these and make a graph representation, a visual representation of how the student progressed. But if you don't, just showing this to a parent with doing this type of activity or any activities or multiple activities, think about how beneficial it is, because now you have your data and you're showing all the hard work you're already doing. I know already in many of the classes that I walk in to observe, teachers are already doing phenomenal things, but they're just not figuring out a simple way to track these activities. So for you as a teacher, for anybody who's in your classroom, whether you're a therapist or whether you're even a parent and you want to track how your child is progressing on activities you're doing at home, here is a simple way to do it. Okay, data is data no matter what. Just make sure that you are descriptive. Sometimes you may have to add on the back, you gave certain accommodations, and you know, you could even write it, like I said, in between the lines. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but think about how simple this is. I mean, I feel like anybody could do this, and now you're gonna be like, maybe this is not as hard as I thought. Okay, and that's my goal, to help educate you guys and give you tools that are going to be beneficial for the classroom, that are simple, that can be achieved. So if you found this video super good and you found it useful, I'm going to ask you guys to share it with a friend. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you follow us through social media. And if you would like to receive this freebie, make sure that you sign up for our newsletter. I will put the form for you to sign in. You can also follow us at www.autismelements.org for all of our information. We have a couple teacher series, webinar series for you guys to learn along with us. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you on our next video.